kill them but me.
Dude, that thing's awesome.
That thing is awesome. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Hang on a second. Okay, that's a little bit better. Hey everybody, Reasonable Gunner coming in to you right now, and I just wanted to thank you all again for the views and comments that you had from my last few videos. I know it's been a while since we've done an update with this particular firearm, but I thought we'd take the time and actually update this Walther PDP F-series. There have been a lot of great comments and questions that have been coming up over the last couple months ever since I've done the video, and everybody had been kind of itching as to what happened. How well did this thing turn out? Did it turn out the way that you expected? Were there any other issues? So this video is really just to give you a bit of an update as to what we thought was great, if the upgrades were worth it. And if you want to be able to recap on what we did with this particular pistol, check out my last video for Walther PDP F-series. This is part 2. But for those of you who are just tuning in for this one, I'll just kind of give you a breakdown on what we did at first. This has now been about 1,200 rounds since that last video, so it takes time to go through this. But I will tell you that we did a thorough review of all of the ammunition choices that we did, especially for concealed carry and protection, as well as ball rounds that we use at the range. So with that said, let's get started. What we did in the last video was we answered the questions about this pistol with our Reasonable Gunner 1,000 round at the range and in training test. First question that came up, I remember this very vividly. Were the soft primer strikes and lack of consistency of the pistol solved? This was the biggest question that people had in the comments section in the last video. The answer to that is yes. As I stated before, we sent the PDP F-series back to Walther Arms for inspection and diagnostics of the striker fire pin and assembly. And when we received it from Walther, just to let you know everything is clear, they stated that they had really just changed out the entire firing pin assembly, including the firing pin, trigger safety spring, and plunger. So this entire trigger assembly up top is what they switched out. And ever since then, it has been no problem. I mean, whatever they did, it worked. And hadn't had a single issue since during this 1,200 round test. And it really seemed to do the trick. We hadn't had a single failure feed, no more soft primer strikes, no other issues ever since. So what we used was we used 2 types of ball ammunition. One of them which was 115 grain Ciller and Beloit, 115 grain MagTech, and 124 grain MaxTech. MagTech, it seems to be all the same lately. Then we used, for personal protection ammunition, we used Sig Sauer 124 grain, 147 grain, as well as Hornady Critical Defense. I believe that one is 124 grain, and then critical duty defense ammunition, which I think might be 90 grain. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comments below, but they all came out with positive results. So one of the things that we did with modifying this particular pistol, and I'm not going to take it apart for you for YouTube guideline reasons, I'm going to clear again, is we wanted to be able to mitigate that felt recoil. And what we did was we decided to take out the OEM guide rod and replace it with the ones from the DPM systems. Okay, this has a multiple spring system installed. Right there, as you can see in the middle is the stock captured recoil spring and guide rod. And what we wanted to do was make sure that we could actually mitigate even more of that recoil by using that type of system. Because here's what we found out. The reason why the PDP actually had a lot more felt recoil than other weapon systems was because of the fact that it was the step chamber of the barrel. And I noticed this also in the PPQ Model 2 that I own. That step chamber allowed for a bit more projectile velocity than most pistols. And so with that additional velocity and energy comes to that dreaded increase in felt recoil. In addition to that, of course, a lot of people don't realize that if you don't own a PDP, this slide here is a lot lighter than it looks. It looks bulky, but it's actually about 6 ounces or so lighter than the PPQ SC, as well as the PDP. It's about a 7-ounce difference. So it's actually pretty significant when it comes to the weight difference between the slide of the PPQ and the PDP, even though this was thicker, bulkier, but it was definitely with lighter weight alloy materials with it to be able to allow for the optic. Now, that doesn't mean that the pistol had so much felt recoil that it affected precision, as the gun would return to zero quite easily. But many PDP owners and users that I've spoken with and kind of commented with, they almost all seem to experience this felt recoil, and they always thought that it was just not just because of the lighter weight slide, but they thought the bore axis, because it's higher, like a SIG bore axis, it's not a Glock or a CZ, so therefore there's going to be more issues with that recoil because of the higher bore axis. I find that argument to be fair, but I don't think it really applies in this particular case. I think that in this case, it really is the step chambered barrel. Okay. As I said before, we use the DPM coil system. So what it does is it comes with a series of springs. This is for the 3.5 inch, and it comes with a 1.15 millimeter soft spring. That's gold. That's the medium one, and the very first one, which is the silver one here, is a super soft spring. That's really made more for ball ammunition, especially for 115 grain or lower. And then you have here the larger 1.2 millimeter hard springs. That diameter is a little bit larger. I think that after going through a lot of these, because the original spring and guide rod is captured, while the new one has its own separate guide rod, and it is captured within the actual firearm itself. So I started off with the silver one and went to the gold. Okay, I think that the gold is the winner for this. I will probably go ahead and try. I tried all of them, but I will go back again just to make sure with this slightly softer hard spring. That's like just a step above what I already have, which is the silver 1.2 millimeter. I might try that next time just to see about different types of personal protection ammunition, if that's gonna work. So I liked it so much that I decided to switch this out on my actual PDP. Now my PDP, the 4-inch one, Model 1, the Mark 1, that one has the original construction and signature as the PPQ. So that's why I was able to swap out an Apex trigger into it, even though you can't do that with these newer ones, etc. I'm not really here to talk about that, but I like this so much actually. I just changed out the guide rod that was a ZR Tactical one for the DPM systems. The DPM systems guide rod and spring only come captured for the 4-inch PDP. Let me know if you have any questions about that, but I do think that the DPM systems was worth it. But as far as this F-series, it definitely mitigated a lot of that recoil for the step chamber. Next was, of course, this wonderful little ditty here. And I think that's why a lot of people are here to see this video. I know that I'm a long time into this portion, but the OverWatch Precision trigger, is it worth the upgrade? Yes. I wish I had the resources to compare the OverWatch Precision trigger for the Dynamic Performance trigger. That's the aftermarket one that Walther sells, not the Performance Duty trigger. I mean, it's so confusing. Performance Duty trigger, Dynamic Performance, DPT versus PTT, whatever. Either way, their aftermarket one that they use in their Walther PDP SD Pro, that trigger was something I really wanted to try and see if I could be able to get my hands on. I just couldn't find it. They were constantly sold out of those triggers. And secondly, I'm not even gonna lie to you, this was terrible to take out. This particular pin here. Now, I've been able to take it out in other PPQs. Maybe it's because of their age, maybe because I did it so often. My other PDP, it wasn't the worst thing to use, but this was a pain. I really wouldn't recommend doing this again, but it should be pretty easy, theoretically speaking. I honestly felt that this was just a pain to take apart, and if I would do it again, I'd try not to. Okay. Overall, Sherry was quite pleased with the new trigger and could really hammer fire pairs with this trigger much more easily than with the stock one. I will say that the initial take up for this trigger was easily reduced by about 30 to 40%, especially the fact that this has a flat face on this as opposed to a really curved trigger that the OEM one had from the factory. It's a little bit more take up than I would like on the Apex, and I know I can't switch that up, but this is actually pretty good. So if I were to press that trigger here, again, thanks to the DPS system, it's easy to be able to, the take up is just that much, just for that reset. That's it. I like this very much. See how that reset is? One of the best I've ever seen. There was no need to change the back straps to compensate for any trigger reach for this particular trigger, because even with the PPQ-SC, which is pretty much similar to this platform as well as the VP9SK, but they're almost literally the same size, I do find that the actual design is a bit different. So aftermarket for the particular shorter models are not nearly as available as for the larger pistols available. So the last question that came up was there anything else I plan to do? Like any kind of porting or compensator options? I was tempted to go to Floyd's custom shop for some porting of the barrel, and I'll show a picture of this right here in a second, but they actually take out a chunk of this portion of the slide here and move the front sight back a bit more, and that chunk that's missing is just a big gap here with some metal, and then at the same time they have ported the absolute bejesus out of the actual barrel itself. It looks cool. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I mean, it's awesome, and I'm quite sure it works quite well. The design is great, but I think for reliability and practicality issues due to that really aggressive design, for personal protection and defensive carry, I kind of make that a hard pass. And the reason why that is can you imagine if this fell into the dirt or the mud or anything else in a defensive situation, something could easily obstruct that barrel or anything alongside that barrel and could cause a malfunction of a sort. I mean, yeah, there's a lower likelihood that it would blow whatever that's in there out, but I guess I'm one of those guys that's just too aggressive in my opinion, to the point where I just don't think it's kind of working. I want to be able to possibly even see if there is a black steel gas pedal adapter that can go on this area here. I know they sell one for the Walther, but I don't know if they would sell one for the 3.5 inch. It's the foldable one that could still fit in most holsters, so that'd be really the only other thing I would do. Again, the purpose of this particular pistol is to stay reliable, dependable, good performance, concealed carry in the waistband. So I just think that the way that this is functioning right now, after the 1,200 rounds that we've had in it, I think it's fantastic. I hope you guys do too. I'm sorry it took so long. Thanks for tuning in. If there's any questions, please leave a comment below. I'll check it out. More stuff coming up. Take care. Peace.
Babe.
Next.